Y'all ready?
Right. Good morning, class. Welcome to our science seminar today. A lot of good stuff for you today. It's a real hot topic here, Hot Wheels. I remember those when I was younger, running them down the racetrack. So I'm sure that you're going to appreciate what we have for you today, too. I want to remind you that we have two science seminars today. We have another science seminar tonight at 7 o'clock in the same room on the topic of chemical warfare in World War I. So you may want to put that on your calendar for tonight.
That seminar.
I think some organic chemists might be coming in for that. Yeah.
That's not what I saw.
All right, next week we have more seminars coming. Next week we have the secrets for secrets for maintaining healthy body weight. Okay? And that's going to be given to us by our own Dr. Fred Ballarain from biology. Okay? So if you have any questions on that, how to stay fit and trim and healthy, you want to come to that. Then on the 23rd, we have a very good seminar from Francis De Sota from University of North Texas, who's going to be talking about chemistry and supermolecular structures. And that's going to be really cool, so you don't want to miss that one. And then also in October, on the 30th of October, 5 seminars in October. October's a really good month, isn't it? Okay. We have the geochemical and pavement engineering. So all you civil engineering types might want to come out for that one at the end of October. Okay? So make sure you have all these things on your calendars. Also, I want to remind you that if you're interested in any of the topics that come up during the seminar or want to meet the seminarians, okay, you can meet us all for lunch. Today, we're going to be up in that stage area of the Corner Cafe. So if you want to come and join us to talk to the presenters about their experiences or ask them questions or find out more things, that's the place to do after seminar. You can probably eat lunch anyway, make your lunch worthwhile, and get more out of it by joining us up there on the stage area. So without taking more time from the Wheels people, I'll leave it all over to them. Just give them a warm, happy...
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to LeTourneau Science Seminar. I'm glad you all come out here and join us. My name is Austin McCaslin. First thing I want to do before I introduce anybody or actually get into our presentation is pray, if y'all don't mind. So if y'all bow your heads with me. Father God, we come before you today thankful that you are such a loving and gracious God. Father, thank you for everything you provided for us. God, thank you for providing this safe atmosphere for us to be able to pursue our education and pursue our passions, Father. I ask you to help myself and the other speakers today to be eloquent, God, in our speech and to convey the information well, Father, and that we convey it accurately, Lord. All these things I pray in your name. Amen. Okay, so like I said, my name is Austin McCaslin. I'm the lead for the LeTourneau Wheels team. First thing I want to do is I want to introduce my team. They are absolutely amazing. There's no way on earth I would be even sane or standing here if they weren't here. They kept us, we're all very tight-knit after we got back from Kenya. So just to my left we have, my left, Elisa Ham, Ben Jonah, Luke Funk, Danielle Thiessen, and Sarah Crawford. Also with us when we went to Kenya was Melanie Dittmer. She was the team lead, and she was very instrumental in her role as a leader. And of course, I can't not forget our faculty lead, Karen Rispin. Again, none of this would be possible without her leadership. So the first thing I want to do is, I'll be a slightly cliche here, and I'm going to start with a quote. Plato once said that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, I want to twist that just a little bit and put it in a little more simple terms. I just want to say that need facilitates action. And so we would say, what is the need? What is the need to that facilitates the action of this Wheels team? Well, let me tell you what. As you can see up on the screen, right here, in 2003, it was estimated that around 20 million, about 30% of those requiring a wheelchair for mobility did not have one. Now, we don't necessarily think of that as much here in the United States. We are very blessed. We have elevators. We have ramps that legally have to be a certain angle of incline going into public buildings. So we don't think about it as much. But in less resource settings, it is very common for wheelchairs to not fit the atmosphere, not fit the need of the people using them. As you can see, this large graphic we have right here, this is essentially a trash can of wheelchairs that have either broken or are not serving their purpose to the degree that they should. And so these are pretty much useless. Sometimes, I mean, they were like lawn chairs almost put on wheels. So it's not safe, and sometimes it cause more harm than good. So that's one thing that we are seeking to change. The Wheels team, we work in collaboration with professionals all over the world. Whenever we went to Kenya this summer, we worked with a physical therapist from Canada. We worked with Bethany Kids organization in Kenya. They work at the boarding school called Joytown that we do our field studies at in Kenya. And then we worked with a seating specialist out of Dallas, and another gentleman who's an orthotist, works with braces, things like that, out of Colorado, excuse me. So what we seek to do on the Wheels team is, a lot of people think we actually build the wheelchairs. I'm going to go ahead and crush that for you right now. We don't build the wheelchairs. What we do is we provide follow-up studies that summarize the efficiency of these wheelchairs. And through doing that, wheelchair companies agree to donate these wheelchairs to Joytown, the boarding school we do our field studies at, and to other places all around the world. So, in addition to our field studies, we also write papers, we go to conferences and present on the studies that we've done, and, excuse me, it is a very encompassing program that we do. So the first thing I want to do is tell y'all a little bit about the place we did our field studies at. I know a lot of people here, Kenya. Well, it's more specific than that. Kenya itself is built on it. It's not built. It's a hill, a very hilly country. And Joytown is the boarding school that we do our field studies. It is a boarding school for children with disabilities. As you can see, this picture right here, it is quite a few wheelchairs at this boarding school. And when you think a hill, you don't think wheelchair would be the most ideal scenario. Essentially, the way the Joytown is built, classrooms are down here. You have the dining hall right here. Dormitories are up here. So the whole time it's just like an incline unless they're going down from the dorms or from the dining hall. And when I say they go down, like they don't quick. A lot of like the stronger kids will they'll just pop a wheelie and just fly right down the hill. And I would honestly probably break my arm if I even tried. I fell backwards quite a few times trying to get a wheelie, and just a wheelie, just like, and they laughed at me, made fun of me, all that good stuff. So anyway, like I said, these hills, they're not exactly like, these kind of hills. We're talking like right here, and it's the concrete's cracked, there's potholes in it, so it's not exactly ideal setting for wheelchairs. So what we want to do is conduct studies here and see how well these wheelchairs work. The two wheelchairs we worked with this year were the Hope Haven kids chair and the free wheelchair mission. These are the two chairs we did studies on this year. We did some studies concerning some of the older chairs that were donated as well, and I will let my team discuss that. Pass it off to Elisa right now, and she would tell you all about some of the studies we did in Kenya.
Alright, so while we were in Joytown, at the primary school, one group of us did performance data tests. These compared the two wheelchairs over there that Austin just described, the free wheelchair mission, Generation 2 wheelchair, and the Hope Haven chair. And so these tests are basically designed to show which wheelchair is easier to self-propel. So we would take all of our subjects through different tracks that we set up in each chair, and we would measure their heart rate and distance traveled in both, and then compare those results. So the first set of tests are the 6-minute tests. We would have our subjects roll on rough and smooth ground in both chairs, done first in one wheelchair, then in the other. And these tests give insight into how well a child can travel in each chair, just looking at distance and heart rate, like I said. And as Austin was saying, the terrain over there is not exactly like the smoothest. It's kind of bumpy in a lot of places. So it's nice for kids to have a wheelchair that's able to travel on different types of terrain. Okay, the next tests are the 3-minute tests. Once again, performed in both wheelchairs, and then we would compare the results of each. And these give insight into how well a child can maneuver in each type of chair. So the one on the upper left, that's our curb test. We would have our subjects go up and down a curb, back and forth for 3 minutes. This test is important because, like I was saying, the ground is not always the smoothest. Like a lot of times there's curves that they have to go over and bumps and that type of thing. The test on the upper right, that is our wheelie test, where we have our subjects go around a track that we set up for 3 minutes doing a wheelie. And sometimes like the bumps are so big that the kids can really only like travel over a curb if they're able to do a wheelie. So it's nice if they have a wheelchair that they feel comfortable doing a wheelie in. The one on the bottom left, that's our figure 8 test. We would have our subjects go weave in and out of 2 chairs for 3 minutes in like a figure 8 pattern. And since they spend most of their day in a classroom, it's nice for them to have a wheelchair that can maneuver in and out of tight spaces. And then the one on the bottom right, this is our transfer test. We would have our kids start in a wheelchair, go down to the ground, back up and forth 3 times, and we would just measure to see how long, or time them to see how long that would take. Okay, so this is just an example of our data collection sheet that we would use to mark down how far they traveled and their heart rate in each test. Okay, so today I'm just going to give you the results on the distance traveled and not look at the heart rate. So for the 6-minute test, our subjects were able to travel farther on average on both smooth and rough ground in the free wheelchair mission chair. So that blue one over there, they could travel farther in. Also after each test, the kids would answer questions rating the wheelchair basically and just telling us like what they liked and didn't like about the wheelchair. Austin's going to touch on that a little bit more later, but for now you just need to know that the kids rated this free wheelchair mission chair higher, traveling on both smooth and rough ground for those tests. And for the 3-minute test, once again, the free wheelchair mission chair outperformed the Hope Haven chair. The kids were able to travel farther on the figure 8 track and the wheelie track in that one. And they rated that chair better as well. Okay, the only test where the Hope Haven outperformed the free wheelchair mission chair was the transfer test because it took less time for the kids to transfer in and out of the Hope Haven chair. So the lower number is actually better on this one. And they, once again, rated that much higher. So yeah, they preferred the Hope Haven for the transfer test. Okay, now Ben's going to talk about a curb study that we did.
With this fantastic team we had this year, we were fortunate enough to finish the total skills test for these 2 chairs a couple days before we had to leave. And so with that time, we went a little further into the curb skills test. If you remember, it's a 3-minute test. They go up and down a curb. It's not necessarily a curb that you would see around the loop. It's a couple inches straight up. It was a manhole that had a diagonal incline to it. Still a couple inches up, so still a significant energy to get up for the children. But they started at a point when 1.5 meters up the curb, down the curb, and then to another additional 1.5 meters, turned around and did it all over again for the 3 minutes. And so the 2 additional chairs that we did were the motivation chair and the whirlwind chair. So chairs that have been done in past years, but we did it again this year with the same 30 subjects that we did these 2 chairs on. And so not all students were able to finish the 3-minute curb test in all the chairs. The motivation had the highest amount of students finishing with 25, and the Hope Haven with the least amount of students able to finish it. But all children had the opportunity to do the test. We all had them in the chair with the heart rate monitor on and ready to do the test. They all attempted to do it, but not all were able to actually do it. That graph right there is the total distance traveled in each of the 4 chairs. As you can see, the whirlwind went the furthest, and the Hope Haven the least amount, with the free wheelchair mission, the motivation, in the middle right there. The VAS scores, which is a questionnaire that we asked them to fill out after the actual skills test. And so right here is a score. Austin will touch on that a bit later, but it's a score that they put down with a vertical tick on a line. And the whirlwind still was on top with the highest VAS score. And then the motivation jumping in front of the free wheelchair mission chair on this graph, with the Hope Haven again in the last spot. Along with the scores on the VAS forms, there's also comments. And here are a couple example comments for the 4 different types of chairs. And reading through all these comments, there's a couple things that we pick up on that we see as central, or that the students pick up on a lot. 2 of those things were weight and casters. And so the motivation is a heavy on the front side, and that is due to where the caster wheel is placed. The wheelchair is not here right now, but there's a long bar that comes out in front of the wheelchair, and that's where the front caster wheel is placed. And so that also made it, though, easier for them to go right up and then right down the curb. Compared to the Hope Haven chair, which doesn't have that. It has two small wheels right there with the foot plate right in front. And so the challenging part about this chair is those footrests, the bars kind of poke out, and it was hard for a lot of students to be able to get up the curb or back down the curb because those would hit into the curb itself. And so the people conducting the tests, we had to strap them in their seatbelt and stand next to them because sometimes if that bar would hit, their momentum would sometimes carry them forward. So just a little bit of a safety concern with that chair and trying to complete the tests. And so next we have Austin talking about how to perform one of these questionnaires.
Hi everybody, I'm back again. All right, so y'all are probably going to be absolutely tired of hearing me say questionnaire and administer and all that kind of stuff, but just bear with me. So in addition to our skills test data that we actually took, a large portion of the study that we did in Kenya was through questionnaires. And that's just so we can get information back from the children and from other professionals who are filling out these questionnaires. It's very important whenever you give a questionnaire that you do your best to not influence the feedback you're getting from the children. So if they tell you this hurts, you're like, oh, it hurts because of this. You don't assume that. You do your best to get them to tell you what hurts. Excuse me. We all had translators. The language that their strongest language was Swahili. They do go to school for English, but they were much more comfortable answering in Swahili. So we all had translators with us whenever we were giving out these questionnaires. And so we, just to help make sure that we were getting, the children were comfortable answering and both hearing the question. Moving on. So one type of questionnaire that we did in Kenya was called the Wheelchair Components Questionnaire. And there's 3 different versions of that, and I'll touch on that here in just a second. Now, I'm going to kind of walk around a little bit. Now, y'all heard everybody talk about VAS, and they said I was going to touch on it. So here I am, touching on it. VAS is a visual analog scale. And we have an example of that right here, this big white rectangle that you see with a big happy face right here and a very sad face right here. So this particular question is asking the person taking this questionnaire to rate the rigging and foot support. That essentially is this area right here on these 2 chairs. This particular question is coming out of the conditioned version of the WCEQ, which is the wheelchair components questionnaire that I touched on earlier. Essentially how they would do this is they would analyze that particular area they were asked to look at, and then they would put a little vertical tick mark somewhere on this line that they thought the chair deserved the best grade for in that particular component. If they had any additional comments on that particular component, they could put that either in the poor features or in the good features. And it's hard to analyze categorical data, so if you just took A, B, or C, it's hard to analyze that and put it in quantitative terms. So what we do is we take a little ruler and measure it in millimeters and then write that right over here in this blank. That essentially is how the WCQ and most of our questionnaires works. Like I said earlier, there's 3 different versions of this. There's the wheelchair components questionnaire for condition, there's appropriateness, and there's user. So what question is each of these going to answer? As you can see, the condition form is basically going to ask, what condition is this chair in? The appropriateness is asking, is this chair appropriate for its user, just like the name suggests. Both of the top 2 are answered by professionals who know very well who are very knowledgeable about wheelchairs and know how wheelchairs are supposed to fit and function most efficiently for the user. The last one you see is the WCQ for user. It is, just as it suggests, filled out by the user, and they answer just answer how they think each part of the chair works. So, going into the results. For the components, or for the condition questionnaire, the motivation and whirlwind chairs they're about a year old, and, have been at Joytown for a year whenever we took this survey. As you can see, both of them scored fairly similarly, and also scored very close to the free wheelchair mission, this baby blue one you see right here. Hope Haven and free wheelchair mission had only been there for a couple months when we got there, so they didn't have a whole lot of time to get a whole lot of character in them. Whereas the older Hope Haven, right here, had been there for a little over 2 years. And, sorry, Mom. Had been there for a little over 2 years, so it had plenty of time to the kids to get to use it and to have some character put into it. So as you can see, the Hope Haven, the older one, scored lower than the other four, as far as condition goes, and the Hope Haven outscored the other three as well. Okay, so going into some of the results of the WCQ as far as comments go. What we're going to be analyzing is the footplate area. I don't want to go completely into every component because that would be very dry and we'll be here all day. So, looking purely at the footplates, you can see some of the very common comments that the children had regarding, that the professional had regarding the footplates and the front riggings of these chairs. Motivation, that's the one that Ben discussed earlier that has a really big front caster on it. As you can see, it says the footplates were loose, rotate forward, or missing completely. Going on to the Whirlwind, again, footplates are rusty and stiff, maybe broken completely, or are just missing. You're seeing a theme here. Free wheelchair mission, again, that's the baby blue one we see. That is going to be the footplates were loose, rotate, missing completely, same as the motivation. And regarding the older Hope Haven, we see that most of the footplates had either been repaired or replaced completely. That's one of the reasons that it scored so much lower than the other four. Okay, regarding the Whirlwind chair. Whirlwind chair, you don't see it up here in front of you, but it's one of the older ones that we discussed. And these are the caster wheels that go up front. Caster wheels, for those of you who don't know, are these front bad boys right here. This is not how they're supposed to look. There was a problem with the chairs. The people we work with in Joytown expressed a need for more caster wheels, so that these have been breaking down. And they told, they also communicated that need to Whirlwind. Whirlwind said that's simply not going to do. So they sent us a lot of caster wheels, enough to replace all the caster wheels that were on the chairs in Joytown. So we did not have room for all those wheels in our luggage. So we had two very gracious gentlemen that were coming to do studies on us, actually, on global learning type programs. And they were Greg Bish and John Lommel. John Lommel actually works on campus here at LeTourneau. And they graciously brought all these casters in their own luggage and replaced all of the caster wheels on the wheelchairs. And that was, the kids were very thankful for that. And I know Greg, he brought candy every day. So the kids were very fond of him. And so they were very thankful for that. Moving on to the WCQ for appropriateness. See, now you are getting tired of me saying WCQ, I told you. Moving on to the WCQ for appropriateness. This was done by a seating specialist in Dallas. Her name is Deanna Lusty. And she was basically looking at how well do these chairs fit their user. Motivation and Whirlwind, again, you see scored similarly. Hope Haven scored also very high. Free Wheelchair Mission scored the lowest. You think, okay, Free Wheelchair Mission has done fairly well so far. What's going on? The main comment that we saw most frequently occurring was that the seating in Free Wheelchair Mission was inadequate for its users' needs. And so that is one of the main reasons that it was scoring so low, whereas the Hope Haven seating arrangement worked very well. It's very adjustable, and its users weren't complaining about the cushion hurting, anything like that, near as much. So what we want to do is, regarding the user and appropriateness, those two should be very related. We want to see that users are thinking very similarly to how the professional is thinking. If it's not appropriate for them, hopefully they won't like it as much. That's what we were shooting for, and that's what we got. We saw that, again, Free Wheelchair Mission scored lower than the other four. Again, the comments from the users were that the seating was not up to par for their standards, and that they didn't like it as much as some of the other chairs. Excuse me. Okay. Again, here's another questionnaire that we did. This is called the Function Mobility Assessment. I will hereby refer this to as the FMA. So the FMA is basically seeking to do exactly what the name suggests, see the functional mobility of its user, how well that chair functions for the subject on a day-to-day basis. And these users were in the chairs all day, every day, so they have very encompassing knowledge of how well it works. So they're the ideal candidates to get this questionnaire. So again, this one works very similarly. We read the question to them. If it needed to be translated into Swahili, it was done so. And then the users would then rate the chair wherever they thought necessary. They could then comment here. Whoever their caregiver was, if they had any comments that they thought needed to be said, could then write their comments here. So the results from the FMA. You can see that the motivation and Whirlwind scored very differently this time. They've been fairly similar so far. And so you wonder, okay, why are they scoring so different? Why is the Whirlwind scoring so much higher than the other 4 chairs? Well, the main reason, the main complaint that the children have was that the Whirlwind, or excuse me, not the main complaint, the main thing they liked the most about the Whirlwind chair was that it could fold. Oftentimes whenever they want to go on a field trip, on their school bus, or anything like that, they cannot take their other chairs with them near as easily as they could the Whirlwind because it can fold and is much more easily stored. So that was the main reason that the Whirlwind scored so much higher than the others. Now I'm going to pass it off to Danielle, and she's going to tell y'all about some of the other studies we did. Yes.
All right, so the other half of us worked at the secondary school in Kenya working on the lower limb function questionnaire. So basically this is a picture of John. He's the orthotist that came with us, and he's fitting a prosthetic or a AFO on that child. And just like they were talking about a wheelchair, it's really important for the wheelchair to adequately fit the person. So like, because they live in it all the time. And it's just the same for the brace. Just like you want a wheelchair to fit, you want a brace to fit. And that's where the lower limb function questionnaire came in. So basically the lower limb function questionnaire is a questionnaire that was written by Mrs. Rispin and a rehabilitation physician in Canada that basically assesses how the legs or the lower limb functions while wearing a brace or a prosthetic or an orthotic. So it's a series of questions that assesses different aspects of lower limb functionality, and it uses parametric data, that's just the VAST. It's the same type of questionnaire that we used for the wheelchairs. So it's a set of 20 questions, and each question assesses a different aspect of the brace. So like there's questions like here we see rate how your gait looks while you're walking from poor, very abnormal to excellent, very normal. So they would draw a line just like they would do in the wheelchairs, and if like they don't like it as much, they would do it more on the poor side, or if they like it, there's excellent, and they would draw a line there. And so there's questions about like walking up and down stairs, going up and down ramps, like does it squeak, can you get in and out in a car efficiently, things like that. And so what we did was we administered this questionnaire to 40 different students, and we gave it to them all at once, and then we paired it with physiological tests with the Gait-Right and the FitMate, which we'll talk more about. And the idea was that if they said they had a problem with their gait or something, that would be evident in the physiological test. So if like they said, oh, I can't walk upstairs that great, then in the physiological test there would be evidence of that. So, yeah. Sarah will talk about the Gait-Right.
Last semester we were given the KET grant, and this has given us resources to get equipment like the CosMed FitMate and the Gait-Right. Now I work specifically with the Gait-Right. The Gait-Right is a portable electronic mat, and it looks like this right here. You hook it up to a laptop. Now the Gait-Right, it measures your temporal and spatial characteristics of your gait and stride. So when they walk across the mat, you will see their footsteps on the computer. You'll get a screen that looks like this. And it'll provide pretty much anything and everything you can imagine that is involved in step and stride and force of hitting the ground. So it's incredible. A huge blessing that we were able to receive this equipment. Now, when we were working with this in Kenya, we had a student come in and they would walk across the mat 15 times. And we would just ask that they would walk at their own pace, so there was no rush, they just at their comfortable pace. And we would put seats on either side of the mat so that they can take a break anytime. The point wasn't to exhaust them, it was just to see how they walked. Now we're still going over the data, but it looks promising so far. So we're still working through that. But yeah, this was really helpful with the study. And we also use the COSMED mask, which Luke will talk about.
So yeah, another piece of equipment we were able to acquire last semester was this COSMED FitMate Pro unit. And basically it's a portable respirometer. And it consists of this little computer device here and also this mask system. And basically it can measure a lot of different things. What we're looking at specifically was oxygen consumption, a value called VO2, which is basically how much oxygen you're using while you're exercising or whatever activity you're doing. It also has a heart rate monitor similar to the one they use for the wheelchairs that can measure how fast your heart beats, what kind of rate you're at, and it can do more than that. Those are the main things we're looking at, and we use them during skills tests for people that are wearing braces or had gait abnormalities, which we'll talk about in just a second. But again, it has this mask, a blue mask in the front with a strap around the back, and then a little flow meter that connects to the front, and then there's a wire going from this down to the computer system. And so it's a little bit intimidating for some of the kids to have this scary blue mask on, but once you kind of got to know them a little bit and joked with them and put it on yourself and like, don't I look funny, then they're kind of more okay with it. And a lot of them did fine and did great. And we had a few issues with the equipment. It's working with equipment like this in Kenya and less resource settings is always interesting. You run into problems you wouldn't expect. Something we realized when we got there is that a lot of the kids are smaller than we expected, and our masks there were different sizes, but the smallest size was too big for several of the kids. And so we had to use a different type of mask, which is kind of outside of the mouth. It's just a little mouthpiece that goes inside, which is more uncomfortable, and it didn't work as well. But we found a solution to that. And there were a lot of things that went on with this equipment. It kind of was a lesson in contingency plans. Some of the sensors, there's O2 cell sensors inside these computer things that were supposed to be good for 6 months at least. And they started going bad on us in Kenya after about 2 months of using them. And so luckily we had brought extras and were able to replace them. But yeah, we just learned to deal with the problems one at a time and move on with the study. So I think Danielle could talk next about what we actually did with this.
Okay, so this is kind of how our FitMate study was designed. We did 3 different tests. The resting heart rate test, the timed walk test, and the obstacle course. So like Luke said, they were wearing the FitMate and the mask and everything. So for the resting heart rate, we just had them sit down for like 3 minutes and just to get their resting, just their baseline heart rate. And then we had the time walk test, and that's on this ground right here. It's just flat level ground. The course was about 40 meters long, I think. We have the exact number somewhere. But yeah, they walked 6 minutes just around wearing the respirometer, and just like in the gait right, they walk at their own pace. If they need a break, they can take a break, because we don't want to exhaust them, and we want to make sure that they're as comfortable as they can be. And then the last test was the obstacle course, and that was for 6 minutes as well, where they would walk on the ramp and then through the chairs, those are counted as obstacles, and then up and down the stairs for 6 minutes. And it was, so they went through all of those, and then we're still analyzing the data, but from that we would take the VO2 values, the oxygen intake and outtake, we calculate their velocity, their physical cost index, and these are just some pictures taking him through the test. We always had a Kenyan with us, so that was Simon right there. He was pretty awesome. But they would always translate for us, and if the kids had any questions, they would always answer in Swahili for them. So that was that. And these are some of our limitations.
Going to another country to do research or work or anything like that, you run into things that you didn't expect to. from before the trip, or after the trip you look back and be like, oh, we could have done that more efficiently, or it worked for the trip, but maybe we could change it up next year. And these are just a few of those. So when administering questionnaires, administer in small groups with plenty of translators. One of the questionnaires we're trying to validate was the LLFQ, which we did at the secondary school there. And we had around 40 students come out the very first day to take this questionnaire, which was great. We had a lot of people in the cafeteria, I believe it was. We had a couple translators, and the team was there. We explained to them what needed to be done, what to fill out. But there's just so many of them that, looking back at the papers after that, there's some things left blank. Not all the data that we needed to get out of those questionnaires was on the pieces of paper. So doing that in small groups will hopefully help get every piece of information on all these sheets that we handed out to them so that we can get effective data. After each day, save documents as a separate file. Avoid just saving over an older version. I think through this trip we all became experts at Excel because every single night we were in charge of taking the data we got that day and putting it into a spreadsheet. But with that, there's sometimes human errors in plugging things in, formatting issues, and so just having an older version to reference back to would be very helpful. We had all our paper copies, so there's no fear of losing any data, but just in terms of formatting and all these other things, it would be helpful to have an older version to go back to in case something does happen. One of the things we brought with us, we all had a computer, we all had a hard drive, and so we had it saved on our computers. We saved it to our hard drives every single night, and we also emailed it to Mrs. Rispin every single night or every single weekend, so that we have multiple copies floating around somewhere, so if something does happen, we do have a copy somewhere. Print and bring more than enough of each research document, and that's kind of linked to the very first one right there. We had a lot of people come out, which is a great thing, but we didn't expect that, and so we had to, while we were there, we had to go print out some more documents. And on those questionnaires, that line where they make the vertical tick is a specific length, and so when that is not that length, you need to do a lot of extra calculations, and it's just some more work. And so bringing enough documents and printouts of the questionnaires would be very helpful to do beforehand and get that number. If a master list of subjects is available, stick to this list. In the primary school, that's where I was working. I know for that a lot of the kids, they would switch up chairs. Some kids went home unexpectedly. Some of the files they had at the school weren't complete or very or didn't have a lot of information on the kids. So just having a master list at the very start and sticking to that list would help instead of running around trying to find kids to do the studies with, just to have that list and stick to it. And this last one we found when we were living at SACDEP, which is a place we were staying at every night. When you leave your room at night, make sure you turn the lights off because bugs, there's a ton of bugs there, they're everywhere, and some people found that out the hard way, not turn off their lights at night, and their rooms are just full of bugs. And so with all this, work and data collection, we also had a lot of fun doing a ton of stuff, and so Danielle will go a little further into that.
So like every night we had a data party, and it was really fun because like all the data we got collected during the day, we would have to go through it and put it in the computer and like measure all the VASs and all that stuff. So these are just some pictures of the rooms where we would meet pretty much every night. And yeah, it was Austin's and Luke's room. It was pretty great. You can see the mosquito nets and yeah, just the awesome curtains and everything. Pretty cool. But yeah, like he was saying, we stayed at SACDEP, which is like an agricultural center. So there's like a garden there, and basically what SACDEP is that they train like the natives in Kenya or in Thika to like grow crops and everything organically. So it was pretty cool, and there's like monkeys around and things. It was pretty fun. And then yeah, we also did like it was a lot of hard work, but we did fun things too. We went to London once.
Yeah, we at the start of the trip we ended up going to London, and we got to travel on the first day and do a lot of fun things. Went to Abbey Road, saw where what's his name, Sherlock Holmes lives and all that. But before we went, Danielle made this prediction that we were going to see the Queen, and we're like, there's no chance of that. That's crazy. And on the second day we were in London, we were just walking down the road by an abbey, and we saw all these people lined up. And we're like, what in the world's going on? So we just stopped for like 5 minutes, And the Queen literally drives in front of us and waves at me. Yeah, so there's a picture of her right there. And it's crazy, too, because this is, she only comes to this once every 8 years. It's called the Royal Order of the Bath. So we just happen to be there at the perfect time.
Yeah, and we also went to Kajabi, and we climbed a mountain. It's actually like an inactive volcano, but you just climb and then you walk around the crater. It was pretty great. That's a picture at the top. And then several of us went to the Kajabi Hospital and shadowed a physician there, and we got to go in the operating room, and we saw a lot of surgeries. Like we saw like a skin graft and a C-section and a bunch of other cool things. It was a really great experience. Yeah, we went to Nairobi.
Do you want to tell them? Okay. So before I talk about this, I had 2 stories, but I can't remember what one of them was. Okay, so one was they were talking about the Royal Order of the Bath. Okay, so we were trying to figure out what was going on, and Luke, the go-getter that he is, decided to walk up to this very English-looking police officer and was like, "Sir, what's going on right now?" And the guy was like, "Oh, it's the Royal Order of the Bath." And we were like, Luke was like, "The what?" "The Royal Order of the Bath." And we were like, Luke was like, "The Bath? What is a bath?" Like, "Oh, bath! Oh, bath. Okay, got it." And so that was a funny story. And I can't remember what it was. That was another funny story. I can't remember what it was. Come to lunch, I'll figure out what it is. Okay, so another thing that we did was we got to go see some baby elephants and giraffes. Okay, I'll talk about the elephants first. I've never touched an elephant before. It'd be pretty cool. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to touch the elephants because, like, they were babies. They weren't like super coordinated. They kept like falling on their face and like trying to get up. And keepers were kind of like pick them up. And so one was walking by me, and I was like, "This is me. This is my time right here." So I like reached out very slowly, and I was really scared that guy was gonna see me. And I'm pretty sure he did. But either way, I was going for like the ear and side, but I got there a little late, so I just touched his butt. So yes, in addition to the elephants, we also got to go see some giraffes. And if you'll look right up in that picture, we got up close and personal with these giraffes. I now know those giraffes a lot better than I know most people. We basically would just put a little piece of food, like giraffe food, in our mouth, and apparently it was somewhat sanitary. And so we would just kind of walk up, and the giraffe would just be like, "Okay." And, okay, when I say like a giraffe's tongue is long, y'all, I mean like it was either 12 or 24 inches, one of the two, and it's pretty good. And so it's like the giraffe would go for the food with his tongue, but he would kind of like lick your ear. And like I'm talking like slobber, not like the whole 9. It was an experience. So anyway, I'm gonna pass it off and let them tell y'all some more about what we did in Africa.
Okay,
Who's the go-getter?
so another fun thing we did, we got to go on a safari, and it was really cool. We saw like a ton of animals, and Mount Kenya was there, like in the background, like a huge view. It was really cool. We saw the equator also. That's that one. Yeah, didn't really do anything there, just kind of looked at it, but it was cool. Yeah, there's a line on the ground. Okay.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we had a really great experience in Kenya. We got to meet a lot of people, and it was really great. Like the first semester you do wheels, we do testing here on campus, and we just like learn how to use the equipment and take people through data collection and learn a lot about like what we're actually going to do in Kenya. So like that was really great. Like a church helped us out last semester, and a lot of students on campus. So if you helped us out, thank you very much. But then we go to Kenya, and it's like I think Kenya probably changed all of us. Like just meeting all the kids that we did and learning what it's actually like to be in a wheelchair. Like we'll never know what they actually feel, but like just like walking them through all the tests and stuff. It was hard, but it was really cool. And so yeah, now that we kind of know who we're helping, like Wills is so awesome. Just being able to help our brothers and sisters in Kenya and just all across the world. Because even though it doesn't feel like it, we are changing the world just by like helping them out like this. And so yeah, if you have any questions, come meet with us afterwards. If not, you can also ask us questions now. We're opening the floor. So thank you for coming. I said that.
Questions for our speaker today?
I have one for Austin.
Yes, ma'am.
On the comments about the foot plate
Yes.
of the wheelchair, how many foot plates on the free wheelchair machine one had broken, do you remember?
Free wheelchair mission.
About
Oh gosh, I want to say it was
16?
6. I remembered 7, but that was probably a different chair. It was somewhere around there. It was most of them were in the teens of how many had broken.
Motivation and Whirlwind,
They were mostly just rusty and
there's just
stiff.
a couple of them.
Yeah.
The rest of them were, most of them.
Mm.
So I just didn't want to give a false impression that that chair has a big problem with the foot plate, the Hope Haven one, because it rams into things like you saw in the curb study. And the free wheelchair mission one falls off. Yeah, but the other two are pretty decent. So. And it was really cool. Tell them about the guy from Free Wheelchair Mission that was there.
Oh, so Free Wheelchair Mission decided to send one of their professionals out, and they wanted to observe our testing. So he just kind of wanted to see what we were doing. He was heard we were working with their chairs, and so he just kind of wanted a first-person perspective of it. So he came out and observed how we do our tests, how his chair compared against the other 3 we were testing, and after he'd seen how his chair performed, he said, and like the issue with the foot plates, he said, very glad to know that, and I'm definitely going to take that back to Free Wheelchair Mission, and we're going to be implementing design changes and things of that sort to fix the footplate problem and the performance issues that the Free Wheelchair Mission was having.
You have a question? Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So you went and got all this data. How exactly was it applied? Like, did you go, okay, this is the best wheelchair to have here, let's buy a bunch of these, or did you just send things to the or what?
Well, okay, basically, we don't necessarily take and say, okay, this is the best wheelchair, send us all of these. Because we want different styles of wheelchairs, different companies of wheelchairs, the studies we go and do there, before we even get there, months and months before we even get there, we are in communication with these different companies, and we say, okay, we'll do this study for you in Kenya if you'll send X amount of chairs to this campus. I don't know if that's answering your question or not.
So we're facilitating the donations of these wheelchairs. We do our research, and then we compile the data, and we'll write papers on it, and bring it to conference. And it keeps these companies accountable for making changes and improving wheelchairs. So yes, we're doing all the research and all that, but there are changes coming about. Our data is impacting the world.
Yes.
You said that you had the old Hope Haven.
Yes, it is at Joytown. Yes.
Is it the same as that one, or is it a different chair?
The overall design is very similar. There are a few subtle changes. The biggest thing is it's just older, and some of the parts are breaking down.
What was the average size of your test group?
Average, depending on which test you're talking about, specific.
Of the different types of tests you did with the overall, of what they liked about the chairs.
With the wheelchairs?
That's amazing.
Oh, the FMA, let's see. FMA, we got over 20 for each chair. It depended on depending on the size of the child and the condition of them, disability-wise. They, especially with the FMA, they may or may not have been able to give accurate data. So some kids for the FMA we didn't bother questioning because they either couldn't verbally communicate with us or just weren't necessarily old enough to really if you're too small for the chair, yeah, it's gonna be hard to push just because you're so small. But yeah, for some of the bigger chairs, our test sizes were usually about over 20 people. Yes.
I
You talked about how the Hope Haven one, the first generation one, and it's older, that's why it's having issues. What is the lifespan of an expected wheelchair in Kenya?
Well, it depends on the child, honestly. Sometimes some of the children, like I said earlier, they're very, very playful with their chairs, and some are very conservative. Depending on the chair, I've only been in wheels for a year now, so I haven't had a whole lot of extensive knowledge on that. I think Ms. Risman might be able to answer that better.
The Hope Haven chairs had all their casters and footplates replaced at about a year and a half. The motivation chairs seem to last quite well. They're more than a year old now, not much is broken. The free wheelchair machine, the Whirlwind chairs are doing well as well, except the casters, which they said was a problem with the supplier. So the footplate and casters are a real problem with Hope Haven. And free wheelchair mission, the footplates fall apart right away, but otherwise the chair seems to last well. Most chairs don't last more than about 2 years without extensive repairs in that setting.
I didn't see that you had any statistical data that you incorporated in the study. Did you all do it, or?
The statistical data is being analyzed for most of our tests. I could tell you that, but I don't want to tell you wrong. Especially on our questionnaires regarding the like the WCQ for condition, there was significant difference in some of the chairs. Specifically, which ones? I'm having a hard time remembering. Oh, do you know?
We are in the process of doing a statistical analysis right now, but it wasn't completed soon enough to fully have the presenters understand results before the presentation today. So they chose not to put it in.
Yeah.
But it is being done. The specific test we're doing is ANOVA for the questionnaires and the skills studies, and regressions for validating the questionnaire, and something called Cronbox Alpha for looking for reliability.
Okay. Well, if you have more questions, you can come down and meet our speakers. Otherwise, we'll see you at lunch. Let's thank our speakers. Back here at 7 o'clock tonight.